You might really title this sort of segment as being the same old promises. I've heard it all before.
Headlines hit first. Harry drops $1 million, cameras whirl. Timelines spike, and in a single afternoon, the pressure doesn't fall on Harry. It slides straight onto William and Catherine. So what are they giving? The crowd asks. It's a grey London morning, the kind that can't decide between sunshine and a soaking. A familiar voice mutters about same old promises, and a well-placed source close to William insists Harry hasn't changed his stripes. Maybe that's harsh. Maybe it's history talking. Either way, trust once cracked doesn't glue back easily. Not in families, not in firms, not in the House of Windsor. That's the bind facing William and the Princess of Wales. Because while a father, King Charles, may want a private reset, a quiet cup of tea, and a new chapter, the palace machine is built on risk control. Any reconciliation has to be timed, measured, and protected from spectacle. The king, say insiders, leans toward peace. The institution leans toward caution. Then comes Nottingham. Harry steps in. Flashes pop. A big headline lands. A personal 7-figure donation to a local cause. The number is eye-catching. The timing, even more so. Reports suggest the pledge may trace back months, but the announcement drops now at maximum volume. There's no oversized check photo, no neat paper trail for the tabloids to wave, just the figure, the buzz, and a perfectly framed contrast. Because across the river of headlines, William's homelessness project has moved differently, quietly, practically. Apartments purchased with private funds, keys for people who need a second chance. The kind of work that doesn't fit in a selfie. The kind of work that only shows up when a door opens and a life steadies. There's coverage, sure, but not the marching band, not the symbols, and that is the knife edge. Harry's move is public, loud, and camera-ready. William's is discreet, private, and deliberately underlit. Put both on the same stage and the audience starts comparing spotlights, not outcomes. That's not an accident. It's strategy. In past interviews and projects, Harry has hinted he's seen behind the curtain. If you believe the palace insiders, this is the follow-through. Force the conversation into the open, into a place the institution traditionally refuses to play. Here's the rule most royals live by. Donations are best kept quiet, not because they give less, but because policing too little versus too much turns charity into theater. You write the check, you make the call, you walk away. You don't hold a press conference about the decimal points. That's the old code, but the Sussex camp feels, according to sources, that their philanthropic work gets mocked regardless, dismissed as PR, nitpicked for optics, graded like homework by hostile viewers. Meanwhile, the silent brigade, as one critic put it, earns credit merely for turning up in hats and gloves. If you accept that frame, the Nottingham announcement becomes more than a donation. It's a lever, a nudge, a public scoreboard the palace can't officially deny or debate, which is precisely why it stings inside Kensington Palace, if the whispers are right. Because when a headline thunders $1 from Harry, it implicitly invites the next question. And what about William and Kate? A question that demands an answer the palace won't give, can't give, won't ever give if tradition holds. So we end up here, between two philosophies of service. One says, do the work, leave the noise. The other says, make the noise so the work can't be ignored. And in a media world fueled by algorithms, the second strategy often looks like victory. It trends, it travels. It gets clipped, stitched, subtitled, and sent bouncing from phone to phone. The first strategy? It helps people sleep in a warm room. It changes fewer timelines and more Tuesdays. Let's widen the lens. Trust is the real currency. You lose it when private words show up as public content, when confidences turn into quotes, when a family therapy session gets reframed as Season 2. Once that happens, even a sincere olive branch feels carved from cardboard. That's where William reportedly stands. An older brother with a longer memory and fewer public words. Catherine, too. Burned by the memoir, bruised by interviews, uninterested in another round of whataboutism. They are not playing on Harry's field. They're not even lacing the same boots. Meanwhile, the king is still a father, and fathers want the fight to end before the clock does. The palace would prefer the reunion happen off-camera, after the noise dies, before anyone can turn a handshake into a headline. But noise is the point right now. Noise sets the frame, and whoever writes the frame wins the week. Back to Nottingham's ripple effect. Even supporters who praise the generosity still scratch their heads at the timeline. Was this new? Was it delayed? Why plant it now? Those questions aren't fatal. They're just friction. But friction is enough to reignite old narratives. Harry the disruptor versus William the dutiful. Transparency versus tradition. Public proof versus private practice. And yet, there's a quieter truth beneath the rivalry. Both approaches move money and attention toward real needs. 1 million in headlines can mobilize donors who never noticed before. A dozen hidden leases can stabilize people no camera crew will ever meet. One strategy recruits the crowd. The other rewires the house. You don't have to pick a villain to recognize they pull in opposite directions. So, what breaks the stalemate? Not another announcement, not another source quote, not even a reconciliatory photo op. The only thing that resets this is time and the unglamorous habit of consistent action. If William keeps buying apartments and delivering second chances, the results will talk for him. If Harry keeps tying his brand to measurable projects and publishes audited impact, not just headlines, skeptics will run out of oxygen. Proof quiets arguments. Receipts do what press releases only promise. Until then, expect more of what we've seen. A palace staying allergic to public donation math. A Sussex operation using volume and timing to force comparisons. Commentators filling in blanks the firm refuses to ink. Some will call it a thunderstorm. Others will call it accountability. It's both, depending on the umbrella you carry. Here's the part that rarely trends. Most royal giving has always lived in the shadows on purpose. The logic is simple. When charity becomes performance, the performance becomes the point. But in 2025, performance is the engine that drags attention to the cause. The palace ethic and the platform economy do not want the same thing. That clash isn't personal, it's structural. So yes, a source close to William can say, Harry hasn't changed. And yes, the Sussex team can argue the old rules were designed for a media age that no longer exists. Both claims can be true. Both sides can feel right in their own code and wrong to the other, which leaves us here, watching a family and a brand wrestle on the world's noisiest stage. One brother building without witnesses, one brother building with a spotlight. A father trying to dim the lights. Where does that go? Watch the next donation, not the next headline. If Harry's million turns into audited outcomes and follow-up funding, that's substance. If William's quiet apartments scale into hundreds of beds, that's impact. The future won't be decided by who shouts, but by who ships. Until then, the weather in London remains unsettled. Sun, rain, sun again. And every time the clouds break, another question slips through. What matters more? How charity looks, or how it lives? As ever, it's a developing story. And the next move, loud or quiet, will tell us which strategy the public is ready to believe.